A crazy change in the market this year.
Thank you for tuning in for our Ask the Expert series here at Farley and Farley Realty. And it's that time of year where there's so many closings taking place at title companies, getting your deals closed by the end of the year. And we wanted to call in an incredible expert. And that expert is Renee Stone from Surety Title. She is a title officer and very well versed and comes with amazing experience. So Renee, we welcome you to our Ask the Expert series, and we're just really so interested to speak to you today about possibly different case studies so everyone can learn going forward of what to do and not to do in the title business or in the title procedure when you're purchasing a home.
What a crazy change in the market this year. Often recently I've been telling the story that when everything started to sort of unfold or unravel, depending on how you want to look at it, in March of this year, with the talk of the whole pandemic and the lockdown and people who were quarantining, I remember leaving work one day and going home and sitting there and thinking to myself, so how long am I going to be able to live on my savings account? Because I thought for sure real estate was going to just basically tank. You had people who weren't leaving the homes, which turned into not being able to show homes. And I really thought at that point, real estate was just going to flat out, come to a very, very fast screeching halt. And then all of a sudden, the interest rates dropped. So the first thing that did for us here at Title was begin an incredible upswing in refinances. Obviously, people were just taking advantage of refinancing to get those low rates. But what it also did, which I was shocked at, happily shocked, was sparked people's interest in buying at those rates. So, the purchasing and the buying all these properties was twofold. Number one, it was people who actually were coming out of the cities because their offices were closed down and they were working remotely. And they decided, instead of living up in the city or, in the surrounding suburbs up there where it's a little more expensive to live, that if they were going to work remotely, they were going to travel a little bit deeper south into southern New Jersey, to some, places where they vacationed, beach areas, down beach, along the shore, Cape May, even a little bit more inland, because it's far more affordable. From their North Jersey suburbs and from actually living in the city. So it was incredible to see such a wave of people coming down here from that area, and taking advantage of those rates. And then the other thing it did too was just spark people into buying investment properties. And I don't have to tell you, because you're the realtors, the expert realtors over there, that inventory all of a sudden started just becoming scarce. Properties are not on the market for a long time right now. You barely get it entered into the MLS and you've already got either showings or internal people who've got buyers lined up, and they're barely hitting the market before they're either under contract or in a bidding war or selling for over asking price. And then you've got some older properties that sat for a long time and there wasn't an awful lot of interest there. And they're starting to just move after being on the market for, some of them a year and a half. All of a sudden, they're getting eaten up as well. So it's been very interesting to see that dynamic where it just all of a sudden exploded instead of going the opposite way and tanking. So we're very, very grateful. We're a little bit tired, but we're a little bit, we're very grateful. You know, with the volume that's been coming in, you can definitely see some delays in some things, even though we really are trying to get everything done, you know, according to these contracts. And the contracts that are coming in, some of them are within a couple of weeks time, some of them are a month and a half. The volume for not just us, but for people such as the clerk's office, the mortgage companies, appraisers, home inspectors, everybody. It's across the board. So it's not just title, it's not just realtors. Everyone in this industry has been affected. So again, very happy to be working as hard as we are, and the long hours that we are. It's certainly been a ride. That's, you know, certainly been a ride.
It's definitely a really interesting spiral effect, the whole economy and the real estate business for sure. And
yeah.
So we have a lot of clients now that, you know, they want to, their time is ticking and they want to close as quickly as possible. Probably a little too late to close for the end of the year at this point, but what do you think is a reasonable time period, you know, that's fair as far as the title work is concerned to suggest in a contract for a turnaround time?
You know, I like to always stand by the 30-day, you know, time frame, because we have abstractors who work at the clerk's office, and that's where they are searching all of the title documents and going back, you know, through deeds and mortgages and anything on you know, in the property searching sector. But, you know, you have to remember too that the clerk's office was closed for a while. So a lot of these searches were being done just remotely online. They weren't able to really access things such as, you know, microfiche or paper documents for properties that were that are older. You know, so that was a little bit difficult in the very beginning. Now the clerk's office has opened a little bit more, and now they can actually get in the office to, you know, to be on site to do those things. And that is certainly very, very helpful. So 30 days is customarily, you know, still doable. The only thing that really needs to be taken into consideration too is in purchasing a property and wanting to close in a certain amount of time, you know, if you have a lender involved, they may need a little more than 30 days. And that's going to be dependent on what the requirements are from their borrower to them. So that does take into effect, you know, and into consideration what the lender's going to need. If they have a buyer who's, you know, very efficient in providing those documents, you know, 1, 2, or 3 times, because they get asked multiple times, you know, and then there's so many people involved in, let's say, a 30-day close, from the time you go under contract to have the property inspected to, you know, to going ahead and getting that mortgage done. Appraisers are involved. So there's a lot of people and there's a lot of moving parts. For us at the title company, a search coming back and us closing within 30 days is usually great. You know, sometimes you see some unforeseen things come up in title that may push you past that 30-day period. So, you know, it's a team effort. It really is. I like to say 30 days is great. 45 days is probably a little more of what we're seeing right now. But, you know, there's really no such thing as a rush anymore because, I mean, you know, everyone's doing their best.
Absolutely. And I don't really see it slowing down. I mean, these are normally, you know, January, February, March, or, you know, it's a little quieter, but I think that there's still investors out there and secondary home buyers that want to still come down. They want to find properties. They still want to close quickly because they're going to renovate or they're going to build or they want to get that income, you know, for some more security. So, you know, I feel very confident that it's going to continue the pace. And I wanted to ask that question because, you know, it seems like the biggest delays we have on our end is maybe getting appraisals to take a peek at the properties. So then, once all the documents are together and you're ready to close, because of the pace and that you're under, what have you seen happening? Like, are there obstacles or just delays that we should look for from the real estate perspective, what we can do to help the title companies, move along or, expedite the transaction?
From a title standpoint, when we get that contract from you guys, the biggest thing that I think one of the most important things is when you're presenting a contract to a title company, having information from everybody, contact information, marital information, it's not being nosy. It's questions that need to be asked. Are you married? Are you divorced? Was this a primary residence? Phone numbers, email addresses, if attorneys are involved, if you are using this particular lender, direct contact information, especially if it's not a lender that we're used to using on a regular basis. Perhaps they found a lender online, or they're using a brother's cousin or a neighbor's friend, and they might not be local. So really just making sure that there's contact information for everybody. And this way it gives our processing team the ability to, get the information that might be missing pretty darn quickly. So open lines of communication are very, very important. And again, just having all of the necessary information right up front prevents, delays with things like, you never told me who your lender was. Or, if you switch lenders, you need to kind of let us know. Or I tried to send you an email, but it kept getting bounced back, and things like that. Just trying to get all that information up front to be able to provide that efficiency throughout is probably one of the most important things. This way, if there's questions that need to be asked, or problems that arise, or documents that are needed in addition to the ones we find on title, we have that direct line of communication to just be able to pick up a phone or send a quick email, and really try to get them worked out so there's not much of a delay, to prevent us from getting through to maybe a 30-day closing.
Right. So most importantly is that the realtors work with precision. They get all the details together for the title company. They cooperate with whatever the requested information is. And then there's communication between the title company and the realtors and the buyers and sellers as well, because you do reach out to the buyers and sellers directly for specific as you get to the closing normally, and so that they need to know that they have to be cooperative as well, so you can close in a timely manner.
Right. It's important to know who the players are in the game, to have, again, that direct communication with them, or the direct contact information for them. Each contract, I say, is situational. You may run into a situation where you've got someone buying or selling a property, and they provide you with their information, but then they'll say, this is my attorney and he's handling it all. Please, correspond with him. And then this way he'll correspond with me. Or there's other people who want to call, every day or every couple of days just to kind of check in and see how things are going. So it's not just important for the realtors to have a great line of communication with their clients, whether it's a buyer or a seller, but also letting us at the title company know who we can and cannot communicate with, or how we want to get the information that we need from who we need it from. So again, communication's key, and just having all that information to be able to request it or get it in a timely fashion is certainly going to promote a much quicker closing, and it's going to keep it on track a lot faster. So
that's a very important aspect of the closing, because not everyone realizes, or buyers and sellers don't always realize, that once they have an attorney involved in the transaction, the realtor has to back out a little bit, and the attorney pretty much leads the way, because that's the basic chain of command, or the way the transaction takes place. So if the seller is clear, or buyer is clear that they want their attorney involved, then that becomes your point of contact for sure.
It does. You're right. And again, Point of contact is a great term because that's exactly what we want to know. Who is our point of contact? Because that's going to tell us who's handling certain things. You're absolutely right. When an attorney is brought in, or if a buyer or seller does have legal counsel, it's very important to have that direct communication with them. It doesn't take away the role of the realtor's responsibilities or the lender's responsibilities or the title people's responsibilities. It certainly doesn't take away from what we are still going to do. You know, an attorney's not going to be the one to go out there and get a CO or a land use cert or any of that. You know, that's still going to be up to the realtor to do that. But again, keeping the lines of communication open by providing that to the legal representative of your buyer and seller and your title company and your lender, you know, it's sort of like a circus, and you have to just kind of, you know, have a ringleader who's just trying to get all the information together, you know, to move forward to that closing. There's a lot of moving parts. You know, lenders have specific requirements, title companies have specific requirements, municipalities have specific requirements, such as those land uses or the COs, or, you know, application processes for different things. So yeah, a legal representative is very important, but it really does not take away from what everyone else's role is. It just is a point of contact for someone who stands a little bit out there in front of all of us.
So specific details are more important than ever.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to have that. You know, I always say when you're going on a listing, it's okay to be a little bit nosy. You should really look at the surroundings when you're going in to list a property. It's going to tell you an awful lot about people, and ask the questions, because ultimately, when the property goes under contract, we're really looking at the seller for a lot of items, you know, such as, are they married? Are they divorced? You know, what is their age, if it's their primary residence, if it's not their primary residence, do they have mortgages? Is there, you know, anything we need to know specifically from them? And those are all, not all things, but a lot of those details you can really pick up when you're working with them as a realtor, and it's good to kind of jot them down. And if you have questions about it, you know, ask. If you have a person who is just one individual showing you the property that they want you to list, and they're the ones handling the whole thing, but you may walk in their property and see, let's say, a picture of a wedding, you know, bride and groom, and it's, you know, him and another person, or her and another person, and you're seeing that there's a family that occupies the home. You know, I think it's a valid question to say, oh, you're married? And if they say, well, my wife or my husband's not on the deed or whatever, there's details there that still need to be addressed and still need to be taken into account. I could go on and on about that, but it's good to know your client and to be able to have that line of communication to ask those questions, because if you don't, by the time it gets to us, we're going to be the ones who are doing it for sure.
So it's all about due diligence, not only for the buyer, the seller, the realtor, and the title company as well.
It is.
So do you have any case studies that you'd like to share with us? Maybe, you know, of course, not disclosing any personalities, but maybe an interesting scenario on what to do or what not to do in a real estate transaction? Maybe something you share?
Sure. I mean, I don't even know where to begin. You know, often in my closings, I say that title is a little bit boring. People, however, are not. They remain interesting throughout all of the years. Some stand out a little more than others. You know, back in the day, I remember having a closing where it was a divorce scenario, and we had to have the police there because both parties showed up unknowingly to me and to the people in our office. They had restraining orders against each other. So of course, you know, they show up in one room and then both start, you know, yelling, "You're not supposed to be here. You're not supposed to be here." So, you know, then the cops showed up, and it was interesting, and going back and forth between, you know, offices to handle it, making sure everyone was the right distance apart, much like now with the social distancing.
Right.
One of my favorites was a gentleman who was foreign, and he was at closing, and we had to discuss with him the fact that his spouse had to sign. And it became a little bit of a problem, and we couldn't quite figure out why until he told us that she was not in the country. And we said, well, that's no problem. Is there a place where she is that, we can stop closing? We'll have to delay. We'll send everything where it needs to be, whether it's a consulate or, whether it's a place where she can go to get documents. Obviously, email's the best way to do things like that. Turned out she was in the middle of a very, very far away foreign country where it wasn't as city as you would hope. Very, very remote, required almost a day or so of travel simply to get into an actual city. And then from there was, trains, planes, and automobiles that had to take the spouse to certain areas in order to get things done. And when we said no problem, we can wait for her to return, it turns out he had no idea when she was coming back. And it was interesting. We sort of looked at each other at the table, and we're like, wow, we did not see that coming. So it turned into a little bit of a debacle. And of course, it was an after hours closing, so that's usually when things like that happen. Little crazy things like that. Since this whole pandemic thing started, we've done some unconventional closings. We had a really large tent out in front of our offices, so we were doing a lot of closings outside in tents, in cars, at picnic tables. It's been interesting, but you know what? You just have to get it done, right? However it needs to get done.
Yeah, and now you probably even have a little less of that, where you just have wires. And I know most of the realtors don't come to the closings, and
right.
So we're all in compliance. But probably you have quite a few closings where you have hardly any participation.
We customarily have a large percentage of sellers who opt out of actually attending closing. And that wasn't anything different, with the pandemic. We had a lot of sellers who, owned properties in the Down Beach area, who lived out of state, and just, opted to do everything via email or overnight courier. So that was something we were used to. And that didn't change too much. We did see the numbers on that rise with the whole pandemic thing, but it wasn't anything that we were not familiar with. So that was, nothing shocking. Buyers, we did see an increased number of buyers who did not want to attend closing, which throws a little bit of a monkey wrench into it, especially if you have buyers who are using mortgage companies to obviously, obtain loans to purchase the property, because those are documents that still need to be physically signed. And of course, they're date sensitive. And again, being physically ink signed is important because those are recordable items. So you can't just click a button and DocuSign those. So we've had to do some maneuvering with that and play around with, funding dates with lenders. I would love to give a shout out to the lenders who altered their practices and have been doing things called hybrid closings. As you know, when you guys were able to attend closings, you guys would come in and see your buyers have to sit and sign, sometimes anywhere between 100 to 150 pages in a mortgage package. So, and a lot of that are documents that they had already signed online and DocuSigned and e-signed and returned to their lender, but they were still being sent to closing for them to sign one more time. What these lenders now are doing is they are accepting the majority of those documents via DocuSign. So instead of us getting like 150 documents here at the closing table, they'll only send maybe 50, and those are the pertinent ones that really do need to be ink signed here at the table. And it has just been wonderful because it cuts down on the time that everyone has to be, together in a room, for people who aren't really feeling very comfortable with the closeness of it all. So it's really increased the efficiency of it. I'd love to say that all lenders are doing that, but not quite everyone has signed on for that yet. But they're very very much appreciated. They're things that we really look forward to, and we're seeing the lenders only send us a few documents as compared to 100 or 200. That's a really great thing. I wish every lender would do it, but it's we'll take what we're getting with it, because it really is, it's helping. It's helping a lot with the efficiency.
So the lenders that have been keeping the hybrid closings in place is keeping you resilient. The deals are going through efficiently. So, pandemic or not, you're moving forward and making things happen and closing deals and getting buyers in their new homes, which is, the end all goal.
Mm-hmm. Make no mistake about it. Even the lenders who are not offering the hybrid options for documents at the closing table are still kicking butt. They are still coming through and really making things happen. And, their mortgage packages aren't any worse than they were before the pandemic. It's something that we've seen come out of the whole pandemic thing, is these hybrids, which is just people adapting and people trying to make things a little easier and faster, and they're great. They're really, really great. But all the lenders are really kicking butt. They're really just doing the best they can and working with their buyers, and they're all getting them to the table. So it's keeping us all.
As far as the funding's concerned, are the wires going through efficiently and the funds are in place? And
yeah, a lot of people nowadays choose to really spend their money and provide their money for closings electronically. The era of a check is, I don't want to say it's dwindling. It's still there, but electronically seems to be the preferred way. So wire transfer. Again, pandemic wise, with the banks closing and people not being able to get there, they too had to alter their practices, knowing that the real estate market was on fire, and a lot of their clients were trying to get into the branches to go ahead and obtain these cashier's checks for closings, or go in and set up their wire transfers. So they had to alter their practices as well. And what that did was it really pushed people out of the branches and kept them out of the branches. So the electronic wire transfers just sort of became the preferred method by everyone. So we have seen a major increase in that. And it's great, because those electronic wire transfers, I mean, just like a cashier's check, that's your guaranteed funds. It's a huge team effort from beginning to end, from you guys putting the contracts together, to us getting the contracts, and then ordering the title. And really, communication is such a major thing. Knowing everyone's role and how to get in touch with everyone, and working together to get all of these deals done. So it starts with a realtor. Obviously, your mortgage reps, if you're using them, are so important. Everyone throughout the whole course of the transaction really needs to just sort of be on board and be open, and again, have those lines of communication readily available. And then it will get done. You put a great team together, and you really don't have an awful lot to worry about. And it's much easier when you have a great open line of communication with that team. If something does come up, or if there's a break in title, or if someone is having a problem, getting through the loan process, or if something happens with a property that, is going to promote, talk of credits or repairs or things like that. It's really just a matter of everyone working together and, from beginning to end to get it done. So that's the best advice I have, is just know who the players are in the game, and have a great team, and talk and communicate. That's it.
Renee, thank you so much for being our expert today from Surety Title Company, one of the most well-respected, distinguished companies, and we've had a long-time relationship over the years, and we so much appreciate your tips. And I guess the biggest takeaway is it's all about communication, working with precision and cooperation between the parties to make you resilient and continue to turn the deals and find people their homes and their investments. And that's our end all goal. So again, thank you so much for tuning in, being with us today. And it's always a delight.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's really rewarding.
Thank you again. We appreciate you. I hope you enjoyed our Ask the Expert series today. And if you haven't subscribed, what are you waiting for? Please subscribe. If you enjoyed us today, please hit like, and we'd love to hear your comments.